My husband died, and during the funeral, I found out that he had left all his inheritance to his mistress. I immediately called for his body to be taken to be cremated, took off the black coat with white flowers on it, and threw it in the trash. My husband, or should I say ex-husband, he had just signed the divorce agreement and was in a rush to celebrate with his mistress, but tragically got into a car accident, leaving me, our daughter, and millions in inheritance behind. I held back my grief and continued with the funeral. Halfway through the funeral, my best friend Jenny called and told me that the mistress was at the bank trying to transfer my husband's assets using the will and divorce agreement. That scumbag. He pulled off something like this even before the ink on the agreement had dried. I gritted my teeth, with tears still on my face and the cold wind blowing, making my heart even colder. I stared fiercely at the casket, inside of which lay my love from school uniform to wedding gown. I had supported him from having nothing to achieving something. We had known and loved each other for so many years. I tolerated his betrayal, but to not leave me a single cent even in death, I couldn't take it. My husband's mother, Mary, saw my expression and immediately came over to scold me. Amy, you husband-stealing jinx, my son died early because of you. Hurry up and ensure the funeral is done right. Mary always loved to sow discord. She had always made things difficult for me deliberately, but I tolerated her before to make things easier for Sam. But now, I stared coldly at her. Do you have the right to tell me what to do? Do I not even have the right to answer the phone? Mary was stunned, surprised at how I, who was usually timid and easy to bully, suddenly spoke so sharply. Amy, who gave you the guts to talk to me like this? I always knew you were just as uncultured as your mother. You'd better speak louder, so everyone can see who's the jinx. You're young and already widowed, with white-haired people sending off black-haired ones. I believe you brought this upon yourself. Mary was so angry she couldn't even speak coherently. I sneered and walked into the room. Everyone bowed their heads, listening to the priest's final eulogy. Sam's coffin was placed in the center of the platform, with several large wreaths behind, and in the middle of the wreaths was Sam's smiling but insincere portrait. Seeing that face once again, I felt no grief. Just hearing the name of that mistress, I could imagine Sam with that woman, indulging in unfaithfulness on every night he lied about working late. Stop the eulogy, I interrupted the priest's speech, shocking all my relatives and friends present. Sam's sister stood there, staring in disbelief, not understanding why I was insulting her deceased brother. Amy, what are you doing? I coldly walked up to the platform, grabbed the MC's microphone and declared, friends and family, the funeral is officially over today. Ignoring everyone's astonishment, I walked straight to the door. Sam's sister, Ellie, grabbed my arm, ready to assert her dominance as usual. Where do you think you're going? Explain yourself. Yes, explain yourself. Why do you have to ruin my son's funeral? I didn't want to get involved with them any further, but pointedly asked Ellie, throwing her a slap. The loud slap silenced everyone in the hall, the force of it still tingling in my hand as I let go. Mother and daughter were stunned, Ellie covering her face in disbelief. Ellie, I've always been kind to you. When you were in college, both your brother and I had just graduated, and it was me who earned the money to support your tuition and living expenses. Yet, what have you done? You introduced your friend to your brother to be his mistress? Ellie, how could you treat me like this? You borrowed money from your brother and still haven't repaid it, have you? I coldly questioned Ellie. This family really didn't appreciate what they had. Do you think that just because my husband died, that $500,000 won't be known? That's my marital property. Ellie's eyes shifted, clearly feeling guilty. Relatives and friends gathered around wanting to mediate. Amy, Sam's dead. Can't your family stop causing trouble? If there's something to say it instead of resorting to violence. If my brother were still alive, could he watch you bully his mother and sister like this? Back when Ellie and Sam were starting their business, these relatives stayed away. Now look, they're all coming out to play peacekeepers. Since that's the case, I don't want to hide Sam's dirty secrets anymore, I said coldly. If you all are so curious, listen up. Sam cheated during our marriage. And now he's even made a will to leave all his property to that mistress. Do you still expect to inherit anything after his death? You are all fools. The relatives who had been arguing a moment ago fell silent instantly. I turned my head to look at Mary and Ellie, cruelly saying, do you understand what this means? It means not only me, but also you, his most filial mother and beloved sister, won't get a penny. The two stood frozen. I took off the black coat with white flowers on it and threw it in the trash before leaving Mary a parting gift. As I walked out the door, I took a few steps back and went back to Mary. I mockingly asked, Mary, didn't you say earlier that you wanted to bury your son in the countryside, so his body couldn't be cremated? Mary's face immediately turned ugly, but before she could respond. I drove away. The funeral home was efficient and arranged for the cremation that afternoon. That evening, I scattered his ashes. The grayish-white powder, mixed with remnants, floated in the wind. I clapped my hands, brushed off the ash, and then sold Sam's grave, making an extra $20,000. I was at home packing up, preparing to move. Mary arrived with Ellie and a group of relatives, demanding that I hand over all of Sam's savings. I was about to call the police when there was a loud banging on the door. When I opened it, I saw a woman with a single eyelid, a mole on her mouth, and a fur coat hastily draped over her as she had just stepped into early autumn, looking somewhat ridiculous, with just one glance. I confirmed that this was Sam's mistress, Lucy, Ellie's college friend. Ellie had brought her home and said she came from a poor background with a difficult life, so out of consideration for Ellie, I supported her through college until graduation, and even arranged for her to work at my company, and this was how she repaid me? Just her and a timid little boy peeking out from behind her, staring at me curiously. Mary saw me open the door, but remained silent, walking over. Who is this? Lucy looked pitiful, nudged the boy behind her, and said, Jack, don't you remember your grandmother? It turned out that the child had grown up so much, and it seemed like Mary even knew about the existence of the mother and son. How blind I had been, deceived by Sam for so long. The chubby cheeks of the child moved as he said, Grandma. This made Mary overjoyed, rushing over to hug her grandson and not letting go. One of the reasons Mary disliked me was because my Coco was a girl with congenital heart disease. She had always openly and secretly suggested that we have a son, but I had always refused. Luckily, I had already sent Coco to my mother's place ahead of time. Otherwise, the little girl, seeing her indifferent grandmother smiling at other children, would surely be secretly heartbroken. Mary carried the child into the living room, happily entertaining him with a bunch of relatives. Lucy glanced provocatively at me, wanting to enter as well. Mary had just walked into the living room when she called out to me as usual, asking me to take good care of the mother and son. Reflecting on years of enduring humiliation, I scolded myself for being foolish. I grabbed a vase from the shoe rack and threw it hard, shattering it on the floor. You are not welcome here, Lucy. Lucy didn't seem to care and greeted Mary at the door. Mom, Jack needs to take his medicine. Mary glanced at me and warmly pulled Lucy inside. They were engrossed in many conversations and reminiscing about Sam in the living room. I just wanted to throw up hearing them praise Sam. I continued collecting my things when Lucy stated her purpose for being there. Mom, the kindergarten in the neighborhood is very good, and Jack is of school age. Sam said the house is also in his name. What do you think about the child going to school here? Mary was really into it, but she could also tell that Lucy was considering her plan to take over the house. Lucy started making big promises. I know this house also has Amy's name on it, but we can just give some of Sam's inheritance to her, then I'll move you in. We can take care of Jack together, and you can enjoy some family happiness too. Some relatives who were eager for a show also chimed in. When you're there taking care of your grandson, that's when you'll truly enjoy life. I think Lucy is not bad. Even though Sam left all the inheritance to her, she still seems to be thinking about you, right? Ellie, on the other hand, was more clear-headed. Mom, if Lucy manages to get the house, do you honestly think she'll stay single and take care of Jack for the rest of her life? Once she has a husband, kicking you out won't be a big deal. Moreover, if she can be my brother's mistress, she can also be someone else's mistress. Ellie's husband wasn't honest either. His affair with interns at the company wasn't a one-time thing, so he held a significant hostility towards women who destroy families, and the fact that she could get my brother to keep a secret from his wife shows that she's not an easy-to-control woman. Mom, Ellie, please believe me, Sam and I had a loving relationship, and I will never betray him in this lifetime. Lucy's voice trembled, as if she was determined to spend the rest of her life as a widow for Sam. And as for the property, you all saw it. Amy is so domineering, and Big Brother left everything to me. It's also for your sake, and I'm not trying to get this house for myself. I'm doing it for Jack. If that's the case, then sign a property transfer contract with us right now. Split my brother's assets with me, and I'll believe you, I said firmly, challenging Lucy. Lucy was speechless. Each member of this extended family had their own schemes in mind, but they seemed to have forgotten one thing. Even though this house had mine and Sam's names on it, it was actually purchased by my father, so this house was not joint property between husband and wife. As I left to contact the moving company recommended by my father, several young men swiftly loaded my belongings onto the truck. Mary and Lucy, thinking that I was giving up the house, even offered to help me move, but as I returned, with patrol officers and the young men in tow, Ellie, seeing my stern expression, nervously asked what I intended to do. It should be me asking you, what do you all want? I retorted, my tone becoming serious. This house has no connection to Sam at all. I suggest you leave quickly, otherwise, this is trespassing. Get out now, or I'll call the police, and you'll be in trouble, I said, supported by the familiar patrol officer. A few relatives looked dejected. ready to leave until Lucy stopped them, holding her child. Lucy showed no signs of the earlier restraint and appeared fierce, as if ready to fight for the house. I dare you to do anything. If anything happens to my child, I'll make sure all of you go to jail. Lucy declared, as she and the adults used the children as shields. Yes, if something happens to the child, we'll all fight you. The family chimed in. Amidst the chaos, I calmly lit a match and walked to the balcony's curtains. The flames slowly grew, licking the walls and leaving black marks. The red flames climbed the curtains, intensifying the blaze. As I used the burning curtain ties against the group, "What are you doing?" "You're crazy!" they exclaimed. With the house set afire, a tense confrontation ensued, ending with the intruders fleeing. As they left, a boy named Jack, with eyes as clear as spring water, stared at me. It was odd how a child so spirited didn't resemble Sam at all. Later, I informed the police, accusing the intruders of trying to claim my house and setting it on fire, with their consistent claims pointing towards me burning the house. They were all held for questioning but released due to lack of evidence. Sam and I had been together since university. After graduation, I gave up the high-paying job my father found for me to start a business with Sam, against everyone's objections. The most difficult time was in our second year, struggling to pay debts and employee salaries. We couldn't even afford to go home, surviving on shared one hot dog on the streets. Sam tried to act indifferent to food, but I could see his longing eyes as I ate. Having never faced hardships before, I feared disappointing Sam during those financially tough times. As our business started to stabilize with the $3 million investment from my father, Sam's career took off. Our life was peaceful and happy until I resigned from the company to focus on raising our son, Coco. Coco suffered from congenital heart disease, fragile and frequently ill. My only wish was for her to recover, and I pleaded with Sam to not have more children, but as Sam started behaving differently and began an affair with Lucy, our once harmonious life began to unravel. However, I would not let this adulterous couple succeed. Standing at the company's entrance, looking up at the towering skyscraper, the deep blue windows connecting seamlessly, reflecting the clear sky, the assistant, hastily cleaning her makeup upon seeing me, asked, "Amy, why are you here?" Glancing at her cluttered desk, I bluntly responded, "Tidy up and go to finance to settle your salary." Peter, the HR director and Ellie's husband, approached and questioned, "Amy, what brings you here?" Reminiscing about when Sam suggested bringing Peter into the company to assist, I recalled his unimpressive capabilities and arrogance. Despite my refusal, Sam later hired Peter when I left for maternity leave. Since then, the company's interns were all tall, slim, attractive young women. The present assistant was one of them, caught off guard by my stare and the scattered makeup. "Peter, don't worry, if you're so keen on protecting her, why don't you both plan your next career step together?" I sneered, terminating her employment. Startled, Peter tried to retort, but I interrupted. "I'm the majority shareholder now. Pack your things and leave. Your sneaky games are no secret here." As the crowd watched, a familiar gaze met mine. Lewis, the project manager I had mentored from an intern, although aware of the company's recent struggles. The surprising numbers in the financial report sparked my interest. The company is now almost an empty shell. "If you don't come back soon, it will go bankrupt." Lewis sighed slightly, realizing that the situation of the company was very serious, but his own efforts alone were obviously not enough to save it. The employees below had long-standing grievances, and if the company did not show signs of improvement, what would happen? I frowned as I looked at the documents in my hand. Over the years, Sam had immersed himself in a life of luxury, completely ignoring the difficulties the company was facing. The company that I had poured 5 years of hard work into establishing was now on the brink of collapse. My heart ached at the thought of having to start all over again, sweeping up Sam's ashes. Just then, a commotion erupted outside. It sounded like Lucy. Lucy placed Jack on the front desk and cursed me for being shameless. "Amy, come out and confront me. Sam left the inheritance to me. I am willing to give you face and not take you to court. Don't push your luck," Lucy shouted. Angrily, Peter, who had not left yet, heard someone cursing at me and stepped forward excitedly to join in the accusation. "That's right, Amy, you are ruthless. I have worked diligently for the company for 5 years. You need to give me an explanation if you want to dismiss me," Peter exclaimed. Even the assistant, who knew how he had entered the company and enjoyed a carefree life, decided to leave after packing up his things, knowing he would get an extra month's salary. The employees gathered around, and I pushed through the crowd and walked out. I was tall and well-built, with a commanding presence. Today, I was wearing a red suit, exuding professionalism and authority. My slightly curled hair cascaded down my back, and my lips were painted with bold red lipstick. In contrast, Lucy was wearing out-of-season fur-lined jeans, with a slightly blackened face, wearing unsuitable peach-colored lipstick. Comparing Lucy's appearance with mine, one might momentarily wonder who the real mistress was. "Lucy, with your looks, I don't want your face. Did Sam have the right to leave the inheritance to you? It was our joint property as a couple." Besides, the initial capital of the company was mine, with a notarized agreement established from the beginning. If Sam betrays me, the company belongs to me. Are you sure you can win this lawsuit? I retorted sharply. Lucy was visibly agitated, her cheeks trembling. We'll see in court, she snapped. But this company was built by both of us, and I gave birth to his child. The company should rightfully belong to me and my son. I couldn't help but laugh at her audacity. She had been deceived into having a son by Sam and still didn't realize the truth about him. Everyone suddenly understood Lucy's true identity, and their gaze towards her turned to disgust and disdain. Whatever her reasons were, they were despicable. Lucy, how shallow is your thinking to say such things? Accompanied him? Where? In a hotel bed? I mocked her. It's shameless to come here with a child after being a mistress. If it were me, my wife would have broken my legs. I don't know what Sam saw in you. Lucy's face reddened with shame as she reached out to grab Peter standing nearby. I ran out of patience and raised my phone, which already had the emergency number dialed, warning them to leave immediately. I usually spoke gently and kindly, but Peter, who had joined the company recently, had not seen my firm and decisive side until now. Peter gulped nervously and stood up to leave. Amy, it's not my business, he mumbled. I've been working here for a long time. How do I explain this to Ellie if I leave now? I chuckled softly as I pulled out several photos from my phone. Among them were photos of Peter involuntarily touching others in the break room and stairwells. There was also a complaint letter from an intern accusing him of harassment, all provided to me by Lewis. Pointing at the photos, Peter shook his finger in disbelief. How did you get these? Never mind how I got them. You can explain it to the police later, I replied coolly, seeing that I was serious. Lucy left with her child, shooting me a resentful look before departing. Peter was taken away by the police, with the photos and complaint letter serving as crucial evidence of his misconduct. Lucy did not give up. She somehow managed to scrape together enough money to hire the city's best lawyer and not only wanted to claim company shares, but also challenge me for the position of CEO. The original shareholder agreement indicated that I owned 35% of the shares, Sam held 45%, and the remaining 20% was in the hands of some minor shareholders. But we had a notarized document. That's why I wasn't afraid. However, a few days later, I received several phone calls. Several shareholders had been visited by Lucy, who had brought her child along to persuade them. After failing to convince them with gifts, she caused chaos in their homes, creating a fuss and ruckus. Two of the shareholders' wives were acquaintances of mine and, upon hearing about Lucy's identity as a mistress, they expressed heartfelt support for me to continue as the company's CEO, with the support of my shareholders now at 46%, Lucy's chances of success were slim, and she lost even more ground after I made a certain phone call. The voice on the other end of the line was hoarse, as if suffering from a cold. Amy, William was my childhood friend who had left the city after I married Sam. We had rarely been in touch since then, with only occasional likes on social media. Hearing his voice after a long time, I couldn't help but choke up. William, I replied as he inquired anxiously, what's wrong? Amy? Tell me, I'll help you. I regretted avoiding William's extended hand in the cold that day. Perhaps everything would have been different. After learning about the recent events, he expressed his apologies, blaming himself for not paying attention to my situation lately. He was being silly. I knew that all this was my own doing, and I couldn't blame anyone else. William suddenly appeared with a share transfer document and a red face, his gaze towards me gentle and caring. Amy, don't be afraid. I'm here, he reassured. He still looked like the image in my memories, thick brows, large eyes, and a high nose. Although I was considered tall among women, standing next to him only just put me at chin level. Despite William looking a bit weary after rushing to take the train, his melancholic charm was even more captivating. As soon as he stepped into the company, the female employees were drawn to him. William introduced me to one of his lawyer friends, and we had dinner together to discuss the details of the case. The lawyer mentioned similar cases in which mistresses were unlikely to win in inheritances left by deceased husbands. However, the issue of Jack, as Sam's illegitimate child, still had some inheritance rights. Hence, the best and least risky way to resolve the situation was through negotiation. As we bid farewell to the lawyer, I prepared to drive William to the hotel, but I noticed his face was flushed, indicating that something was amiss. I touched his forehead, which was alarmingly hot. Concerned, I was about to drive him to the hospital when William said, "It's all right, I have some fever medication in my bag. Just take one, and I'll be fine." I took him back to my new home, where I helped him cool down his fever with a damp cloth and alcohol wipes until the late hours of the night. When I saw that his fever had subsided, I breathed a sigh of relief. As I was about to leave, William grabbed my hand. Turning back, I saw him with his eyes closed, murmuring in his sleep, "Amy, don't leave me." My heart skipped a beat, and I gently freed my hand from his grasp, after causing a commotion without achieving her desired outcome. Lucy brought her chaos to the company, sitting on the rooftop with her child. She even called in the media, threatening to take over the company and the house. Despite my hatred for her, I couldn't help but feel sorry for the child, who was innocent and didn't deserve to suffer under such a mother. I explained the situation as told by my lawyer to her, and said, "I know you've spent all your savings to hire a lawyer, and now you're struggling to make ends meet. Going to court in this situation will be a long process, and you may not even win. However, if you sign an agreement to renounce the inheritance, I will consider supporting your child until he graduates from college." Lucy, not entirely satisfied, had Jack crying in her arms, and I couldn't bear to see that. "Speak to me properly and don't scare the child," I demanded. Lucy glanced at the abyss behind her, staring at me with hostility. "You pushed us to this extreme, and you're still pretending to care about the child?" Facing the flashing lights of the reporters, Lucy accused me. "She's heartless, pushing my child and me to the brink. The house is not ours. The company doesn't have a stake in us, let alone any savings. Everything is in her hands. I know I've morally failed, but the child is innocent. My Jack is only 3 years old and has lost his father. He doesn't even have a secure future now." The reporters reacted indifferently, focusing on capturing the moments for their own gain rather than showing concern for Lucy's emotions. Lewis ushered the reporters out of the building, and other colleagues tried to persuade Lucy to come down, but she became more agitated, behaving like a madwoman. I sighed in exasperation. Sam, even in death, didn't rest peacefully and left me dealing with such a bizarre opponent. Mary and Ellie also learned about the situation and hurried over. Seeing the child in danger, Mary cried out for Lucy to put down the child. Ellie glared at me and approached Lucy to persuade her to give the child to her. "If you want me to put down the child, that's fine, but you need to give me money. I want $5 million, Lucy demanded. I've seen shameless people before, but never someone as shameless as Lucy. However, Mary and Ellie were even more shameless, immediately resorting to moral blackmail. "Amy, you have a company in hand. Earning another $5 million shouldn't be difficult. Just agree to Lucy and give her $5 million. They urged. I chuckled in frustration. It was just moral blackmail, nothing new. "Mom, Ellie, you don't understand the situation with the company. I can't come up with $5 million. This child has nothing to do with me, but he's your grandson and nephew. If you want the money, you should pay," I retorted. The two of them started to play the poverty card, and I calmly responded, "I did have some money on hand, but it was meant for you too. Since it's come to this, you can have this money." As expected, when it came to their own interests, they didn't know where to start. Both of them changed their expressions, asking me how much money I planned to give them. I looked at Lucy and said, "You'd better get her down first." With a struggle, they managed to remove Lucy, who finally let go of the child, but she suddenly pulled out a small knife from somewhere and rushed towards me. I couldn't dodge in time, and as the tip of the knife was 3 inches away from me, Mary and my colleagues on the other side couldn't help but gasp. "Amy, be careful, boss." Lewis ran towards me. At that moment, an arm reached up from behind me, grasping Lucy's arm firmly. It was William. As Lucy tried to reach for me, William shook her off, and I ended up falling into his arms. William held me steady, his actions feeling a bit ambiguous. As Lucy got up from the ground, she accused me, saying, "Amy, no wonder you can be so heartless with Sam after being married for 10 years. It's because you've had another man all this time. You're doing all this not for revenge on us, but for this man. Shut up. Accuse me if you want, but don't make unfounded claims," I interjected. Mary held Jack's hand and told Lucy to stop speaking. She urged her to leave, as Jack was terrified. Even Mary and Ellie didn't believe Lucy's words because they knew that all my energy was focused on Coco. Even if it was for Coco, I wouldn't do anything that would harm family harmony, afraid that Lucy would lose her temper again. Mary took Jack and didn't plan to let go. They were all ready to leave. Ellie, walking at the back, smiled and asked me about the money I owed her from Peter. I smiled and said, "You have to help me keep an eye on Lucy, considering she's living with her mother now. If you can persuade her to give up her inheritance, I'll give you what I owe you when the time comes." Ellie's face showed a meaningful expression, and she gestured an okay to me. With William's 5% equity transfer and the support of the two shareholders' wives, I had successfully won the battle for the company. With William's introduction, the company also landed a few deals, temporarily easing the crisis. With a bit of breathing space in my life, I agreed to attend Coco's school's family sports day in a few days. William mentioned that since it was a family sports day, he also wanted to come along. I understood his intentions but politely declined. I always felt guilty about William. He had helped me so much, and I couldn't do much for him in return. All I could do was not stand in the way of his happiness and hoped he would find the right person soon. While William dealt with the external threats to the company, Lewis took care of the internal issues. As a veteran employee, he carried some weight in the company, while William and I We're out discussing clients. Lewis worked diligently to stabilize the company's employees. I treated Lewis to a meal and reminisced about the times when he was still an intern. I didn't have a high education. If you hadn't nurtured me from the beginning, I wouldn't know where I'd be now, Lewis said with a hint of nostalgia. I shook my head. Lewis may have graduated with an ordinary undergraduate degree, but it was his inner drive and determination that made him the key pillar of the company. Today, even if I hadn't been there, he would have grown into his role given time. Amy, Lewis hesitated, as if he had something to tell me. Anyway, I'll drink another toast to you. After a few more drinks, he was completely intoxicated. He mumbled something about liking someone but not wanting blame. I didn't pay much attention to his words, as I was more concerned about how to get him home. I saw William coming in from outside. For some reason, I felt a sense of guilt even though I didn't know why. William didn't say a word, just lifted Lewis and left. I tried to assist, but he refused. Lewis was accommodated at the hotel where William stayed, and I left him a message to take a day off from work. On the day of the family sports day, all the other kids had their parents by their side. Coco, with her hair styled in twin ponytails, adorned with bows, smiled innocently, saying, "Mom and Grandma are here with me. I'm really happy." Coco's carefree attitude made me feel a pang of sorrow. If Sam hadn't passed away, at least Coco would still have a father. During a two-person leg-tied running event, while other parents were ready, my mom and I fumbled to secure the ties. Just as everyone was waiting for us, a familiar voice from behind said, "Amy, and let me help." The sunlight cast a golden hue over William's eyes as his soft hair gently swayed. Voices of admiration could be heard around us, praising, "Coco's dad is so handsome." I wanted to explain, but seeing Coco at the finishing line with a happy expression, I ultimately stayed silent. William helped my mom to the audience seats and quickly tied the rope around me. As the whistle blew, everyone dashed towards the finish line. Some had perfect coordination, while others stumbled and fell in a heap. Surrounded by laughter, I was also swept up in the atmosphere and didn't watch my step, eventually tripping over, but luckily being caught by William. With the faint scent of pine in his arms, my ears began to blush. Unfortunately, due to Coco's health, she couldn't participate in the subsequent events. Seeing her disappointed face made me feel sorry, but William suggested, "Since the weather is nice, why don't we ask for permission from the teacher and take Coco out to have fun?" Coco wholeheartedly agreed, gravitating towards William, and the two engaged in a playful interaction. We ended up going to the zoo, with Coco perched on William's shoulders, asking curiously, "How do giraffes sleep with such long necks?" William gently explained, "Giraffes mostly sleep standing up, resting their necks on tree branches. Sometimes they might lie down, arch their necks back on their hind legs, and rest their chins on their thighs." Unable to imagine how a giraffe would look lying down, Coco's eyes widened in surprise as William playfully swayed, causing her to clutch his hands tightly. As my mom and I followed behind, we couldn't help but be amused by their interaction. My mom took my hand and whispered, "William has grown up under my care since he was little. I thought you two would end up getting married eventually, but I never thought." "Mom, let's not talk about this," I interrupted her. I didn't want to dwell on the past. I only hoped that, in the future, you can follow your heart. As long as you and Coco are happy, your dad and I won't worry. After returning home, Coco was too excited to sleep. I told her a bedtime story and tentatively asked, "Coco, do you want Uncle William to be your dad?" Coco's unexpected answer caught me off guard. She held my hand and said, "Mom, will Dad forget me when he's in heaven? Whether or not he remembers me, I will always love him, so, Mom, don't try to find a dad for me. I already have a dad in heaven. If you want to find someone, find a husband like Uncle William who will make you happy." Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long as the company faced another crisis. One of the projects that Sam had signed off on had encountered issues. The design plans that had been prepared were leaked, causing significant losses to the client, who demanded compensation according to the breach clauses in the contract. Simultaneously, several competitors had begun to undermine the company, with multiple issues piling up. Anyone could see where it was headed, but I couldn't believe that someone I had brought up could betray me. Just as I was struggling with the company's troubles, my childhood friend Jenny from my hometown brought me some earth-shattering news. Her husband is Sam's college classmate, and someone in Jenny's family works in prison. Last week, she learned that Lucy's former boyfriend, who was about to get married, was suddenly arrested for fraud and sent to jail. This ex-boyfriend was released from prison just 2 days ago. I was puzzled. What does Lucy's former boyfriend have to do with the inheritance dispute between us? But I didn't expect that the ex-boyfriend somehow found Lucy and even managed to obtain a lock of Jack's hair. Ultimately, the ex-boyfriend presented a paternity test to Jenny's husband, who also happens to be Sam's lawyer. The test proved a blood relationship between Jack and the ex-boyfriend. Jack is not Sam's child. The ex-boyfriend's goal was to find me. He demanded a hefty sum of $5 million just by opening his mouth, quite in line with Lucy's character. Instead of immediately agreeing, I asked Ellie to help me with something. A few days later, William accompanied me to Mary's house to confront Lucy. Upon seeing us, they were surprised. I asked Mary to take Jack away, then directly asked Lucy, "Is Jack really Sam's child?" Lucy was flustered, her mouth slightly agape, eyes darting around in confusion. How is he not?" She stammered. The task I had Ellie help me with was to collect Jack's hair, nails, and saliva. In fact, there are methods for proving blood relations other than just paternity tests. I had Jack and Coco undergo a half-sibling relationship test, which proved that they are not related by blood. I slammed the test results onto the table, along with a company financial report. Now you have no cards left to play. Let me tell you the truth, I've been betrayed, and the company might incur debts of millions. The house is already not considered joint property of Sam and me. Taking into account the debts and the joint property share, the inheritance left by Sam amounts to a debt of $8 million according to inheritance laws, I explained. After further clarification, I gave Lucy only one option: pay off the debts or face imprisonment, knowing that the child is not Sam's. I could easily request a paternity test to confirm the child's relation to Sam, realizing my earlier folly upon learning about Sam's illegitimate child. I left without further delay. Unexpectedly, 3 days later, Lucy wanted to meet me. She called me to a cafe. Without preamble, she began, "I know I'm no match for you, but do you know why Sam initially sought me out? Uninterested in their past," Lucy continued. "Sam was under great pressure, managing company affairs during the day, and when he returned home at night, your focus was solely on your daughter. He had no one to confide in, despite feeling unrepentant." The image of Sam's insincere behavior crossed my mind, causing me to feel nauseated. I had attempted to talk to Sam before, but often he gave transient responses and avoided continuing the conversation. Lucy had turned me into the neglectful wife who wronged Sam. Mocking Lucy, I retorted, "Lucy, your compassion is too indiscriminate. As a corporate executive with wealth, status, a wife, and a child, he hardly deserves your sympathy. He wants another child?" With his attitude towards Coco, another child would only be neglected. In that case, I'd rather divorce. I expected Lucy to argue back, but to my surprise, she gazed calmly at me, almost as if waiting for something. At that moment, a sudden dizziness overcame me, a heaviness in my eyelids. As darkness crept in, the last thing I saw was Lucy's enigmatic smile reaching out to me. When I regained consciousness, I found myself bound in an abandoned, unfinished building, located in desolate surroundings. The building displayed no signs of life in the vicinity. Dusk was falling, cool evening air brushing against my skin, sending shivers down my spine. Behind me, I heard the scuffing of shoes against the dusty floor. My mouth gagged. I strained to turn around. Black jacket, jeans. Despite the mask, I recognized the person immediately, Lucy's ex-boyfriend, with a scar above his brow. "Amy, there's nothing to worry about being bound. I just need you to sign an agreement," he said, presenting a document titled Equity Transfer Agreement. Shaking my head gently, I gestured to remove the cloth in my mouth. Tensing my sore cheeks, I tried to remain composed. "The company is going under. Even if I sign the agreement, you and Lucy won't obtain what you desire." He removed my gag, my face stiff. "Don't play tricks. I've heard your company has signed another contract with the project's client, absolving you all from damages." Surprised by this information, I had sought my father's help, and finding a compromise was hard one. But how did Lucy's ex-boyfriend know this? Disregarding the enigma, my urgency was to escape. "My mother has some urgent matters today." William volunteered to pick up Coco. I had been absent from home, and William would soon discover my disappearance. Escaping from this would still depend on me. Trying to placate him, I said, "As you have control over me now, it's your call, but how can you guarantee my safe release after I sign the agreement?" The man raised his eyebrows, uncertain of my willingness to compromise. Lucy's ex-boyfriend seemed invested in targeting Sam for Lucy, rather than actually caring for her. Lucy had lured me, and he threatened me to sign this agreement. "They were associates by circumstance. You seem pitiful," he lightly remarked, brows furrowed. "The captive here is you. So why should I feel pity?" Shaking my head, I reasoned. "Lucy positioned herself behind, using you to deal with me. In case of an accident, you'll bear the consequences, but Lucy can claim coercion from you and reap all benefits." As his gaze pierced me, I sensed a presence behind me. Lucy eventually emerged, walking towards us in disarray. She hesitated, finally looking at me. "No. Maybe we should just get rid of her completely. This way, I can inherit all of Sam's estate." Enraged, the man pushed Lucy down. "So you found me a problem. I only ended up in there because I had to scrape together a dowry to marry you. I hadn't even been inside for a month, and you were already colluding with her husband. How about I just get rid of both of you to save trouble?" Their argument escalated, and I glanced out the window to see Ellie's figure approaching. Clearly, they heard the noises and began to peer around. I kept my calm, trying not to reveal any signs. However, Lucy glimpsed outside, likely noticing someone. Get down, she urged her ex-boyfriend, putting a finger to her lips. Gesturing silence, Ellie persisted in coming over, prompting the two to move me away quickly. Just as they started dragging me outside, police sirens wailed in the vicinity, a jarring disruption. The man panicked. Has Ellie called the cops? As the police car drew closer, I faintly heard William's voice. Over the loudspeaker, a police officer exclaimed, "You are surrounded. Release the hostage." Both became increasingly restless. The man brandishing a hidden dagger, I shook my head in terror, but he already had the knife raised. Lucy was also scared and lowered her voice. "What are you going to do? Are you really going to kill her?" I turned my head in fear, expecting pain, but the ropes on my body loosened. "Go. Don't involve Lucy and the child in this. Tell the police that I did it all, that Lucy released you while I wasn't paying attention." I was surprised and my legs felt weak. Cautiously, I moved along the wall and ran out as soon as I saw the stairs, not looking back. "Amy!" William stood next to a few policemen, and as he saw me running out, he ran towards me. I collapsed into William's arms, completely out of breath. Before the policeman could ask any questions, two figures appeared at the window upstairs. A man was holding Lucy hostage. "Let me go, or I'll kill her." Lucy's face was pale, trying to avoid the knife by lightly gripping his sleeve. William picked me up, and Ellie came over. "Amy, are you okay?" I saw Lucy acting suspiciously these past few days, so I followed her today. "Never thought you guys would be kidnapped." Two policemen went up to negotiate with the man, while several police cars and ambulances slowly approached. In the end, Lucy managed to escape. Her former boyfriend, who had been released from prison less than a month ago, was sentenced for kidnapping and extortion. Everyone found out that Jack was not Sam's child. I pressed charges against Lucy for fraud, extortion, and kidnapping. She would spend the rest of her life in prison, and her son was taken away by that man. Lewis, who had been missing, finally appeared, and I only then learned the truth. It turned out he was the one who leaked the project plans. When I found him, he was living in a shabby and damp house. I was puzzled. "You made quite a bit of money over the years, plus the money from selling the plans. You shouldn't be living here." Lewis took me to a nearby hospital, where through the glass, I saw a frail little girl lying in a hospital bed. "She's my sister, just had a heart transplant surgery, but I can't afford her medical expenses anymore," Lewis said weakly, tears in his eyes. He continued, "Amy, I know I made a mistake. Can you give me a little more time? As long as my sister gets better, I'll accept any punishment." The little girl's eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes and weakly smiled at Lewis. "Go back to the company." "What?" Lewis couldn't believe it. "I caused huge losses to the company. Even if you arrest me, it's only fair." But seeing this little girl, I thought of Coco. If it were Coco lying here, I would do everything possible to save that glimmer of hope. "I'll advance your salary to pay for your sister's medical expenses. You'll have to help the company earn back the losses you caused before. Can you do it?" Lewis pursed his lips. His eyes slightly red. He solemnly said, "Amy, I won't disappoint you again." With everyone's combined efforts, the company returned to the right path and gradually improved. The matter of the inheritance settled, I gave Mary and Ellie each a sum of money enough for them to live without worries. I had Ellie divorce and work by my side, so she wouldn't be tied down by a scumbag her whole life. I felt like I was finally fulfilling something for Sam. William moved into my neighborhood and got a Labrador. The little guy was very likable, so every night, rain or shine, I would walk Coco and the dog, accompanied by William. I can't remember which night it was, but William held my hand. I felt something cold slip onto my finger, and looking down, it was a diamond ring. "Amy, let me take care of you and Coco for the rest of our lives," with the ring on my finger. What else could I do but say yes?